The United States has relinquished control over the internet. Specifically, the Department of Commerce has relinquished its oversight over the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN with two N's. It's a non-profit organization that is responsible for coordinating maintenance and procedures of several databases related to the namespaces of the internet. When most people are saying that it does is they control the domain name system, DNS. But they're also responsible for the Internet Protocol address spaces for IPv4 and IPv6, as well as other stuff. What they're overall responsible for is preserving the operational stability of the Internet, promoting competition, and achieving broad representation of the global Internet community. Okay, so the United States created ICANN under the idea that they would at one point relinquish oversight over them, but they never did up until this point because of various concerns that people in the US government, Department of Commerce, had with the way the organization would be run. So those concerns were resolved, and they've relinquished control. But I think it's a bad idea. Now, people are going to make the argument that because of the NSA leak, the Snowden leaks specifically, that a lot of countries there's a risk with certain countries like China, for instance, or Russia, or whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to go with, that they might close off the internet in their countries to the international internet. So that would create a lot of issues that will run counter to what the internet is supposed to be. And that is indeed an issue. Also, there has been a push in this past for the functions of ICANN to be transferred to the United Nations, which also would be a terrible idea. So the tech giants, people people have worked on the internet for a long time. They are saying, this is a good idea. But I think there's a few issues. Yes, it would be terrible if the United Nations can control over this, but really, that would depend on the United States allowing the United Nations to gain control over this. And it's like, do you think the UN can force the United States to do something like this? No, because the UN only has the power that its member states give it. And if the United States refuses to, well, there you have it. Now, obviously, this is an attempt to, to give more people bigger voice at the table, instead of just having the oversight decided by the United States. But here's the problem. The problem, as I see it, is that the United States, per its constitution, cares, and people in the United States overall care a great deal about freedom of speech. And whatever you might think about the United States, the policies of the politicians in the United States, in the court system in the United States, there is nothing greater than the freedom of speech. And the United States has the strongest protections for freedom of speech of any country in the world. And they enforce it. Wherever you might think about their court system, it is arguably one of the best, if not the best, in the world. There's problems with the judges, absolutely. There's problems with prosecutors. But the ideas there, when it comes to freedom of speech, are very good ones. So giving a voice to countries like China, Russia, India, Iran, giving a voice to even the European Union, which recently passed censorship laws when it comes to the internet, where if you say something online, you can be prosecuted. Well, that's more the case of the United Kingdom, but you get the point. The point is, the European Union, I will not trust the European Union with the internet. But what they're going to do is give them a voice. As far as I understand, they're going to give the governments of the world a voice, not just having the oversight decided by the United States, which I think is a terrible idea. The internet's had a good run under the United States. I don't see why you need to rock the boat on this. I get the concerns with China, with Russia, with Iran, all that, but I do think this is a bad idea. I certainly do think this is better than UN control, but here's another issue. It's also giving control or giving a voice to the tech giants. And do you think private corporations should have that kind of power? Facebook, YouTube, Google, all that. Do you think they should have that kind of power, that kind of say? I don't think so. I think that's a very bad idea. And I think you're setting yourself up. Well, it's not going to have an impact short term, but long term, it could have a very negative impact. The oversight that ICANN was under when it came to the Department of Commerce was under its founding principles, the transparency, that they would manage the internet effectively and fairly. Now, there is a potential with that to go down the wrong tracks. So how did this go through? Well, the Department of Commerce had the authority and funds to make it happen, but there were efforts led by certain Republicans, specifically led by Ted Cruz, of all people, a person I thoroughly disagree with, but Ted Cruz was leading an effort to stop this from happening. However, those efforts failed, in part because they could have done it by putting language on the budget bill that they recently passed to keep the government functioning. They could have implemented language to at least delay this from happening, but that didn't happen. Mitch McConnell removed that language from the bill because, they were on the clock. They had to pass a budget bill. People didn't go out campaigning, and the government was close to being shut down. So that effort failed. The push by Ted Cruz in Congress failed to materialize. I'm pretty sure most people don't care about this. Most people in Congress, in the House of Representatives or the Senate care about this, so whatever. Then there were some state attorney generals that were trying to delay it, but a federal judge in Texas prevented that effort from going through. So that's how it happened. And now the oversight the United States had over the internet has been removed. What the future holds, that's uncertain, but I think it's a bad idea because of the reasons I listed. I think it's a bad idea to give the big tech giants a voice when it comes to running the overall internet, a voice on the table where they can have an influence over decisions. And it's also a bad idea to give countries like Russia, China, Iran, all that. I think that's overall a bad idea. Even the European Union. I think the European Union itself is worse than the United States when it comes to this. So that's where I stand. It's a sad thing that this basically happened without any media attention. It's like, and the only person that was trying to prevent it from happening was Ted Cruz. Well, that's all I had to say on this subject. Christine here on Serious Gaming signing out. Again, the repercussions of this won't be felt probably for years to come, but I don't think it was a good decision. That's where I stand. You might make whatever argument you want about the voices, the international voices being heard, but have you ever considered that the international community is bad when it comes, is worse on free speech than the United States? Because they are worse on free speech, and that is a significant component of the internet. So that's all I have to say.